All right, welcome to Yin Yoga. We're going to start our practice seated, but bring some props that you think you might like. We won't need anything in particular today. Blankets, pillows, anything you got really. And we'll go ahead and get started. And today we're kind of doing all over the body, focusing on hip openers and heart openers. So kind of hitting all the high notes. So as you find your comfortable seat, take a moment and check in with yourself. Notice how you feel in this moment. So you can do that by noticing the quality of your breath. So if your breath feels a little elusive or a little bit constricted, start to encourage it to deepen and slow down a bit. You might even lift up the shoulders as you inhale. And as you exhale, let your shoulders relax down. Do that a couple more times. And one more, lifting the shoulders and lowering. And then we'll just keep that heart nice and open. And I invite you to breathe into the chest, breathe into that heart space. And as you exhale, let your heart grow heavy. And then again, inhale, think lighthearted, heart lifts. And exhale, heart relaxes down. And we'll just take 3 more breaths, focusing into that heart center. And we'll take a final breath together. Let's take a collective breath. Inhale, fill up. Exhale, empty all the air out. And then if the eyes are closed, you'll open them back up. So we're going to start with just a little bit of movements. And for the low body, really the lower 3 energy centers benefit from this next one. We're going to start with a seated cat-cow. So if you're on something tall, like a big prop, I would sit on the floor or sit on a low prop for this next one. So what you'll do is you'll round your spine, draw your chin into the chest as you exhale. And then as you inhale, pull back on your shins and then shine your heart forward and up. And you'll do that a few more times, rounding your spine as you exhale, and then inhale, lifting your heart. And you'll continue to move in this way that's sort of this repetitive, gentle movement, stirring up some energy in the spine. We'll just take 4 more of these. And then you'll sit up tall, and then we can add on from there in more like a circular motion. So we'll break down that circle. You'll take your hands to your knees, slide your rib cage to the left, and then swing your ribs forward. And so you're in that cow pose, seated, and then ribs to the left, and then round your spine to the back of your mat like a cat. So ribs to one side, forward, ribs to the other side, and back. And continue to find that sort of rhythmic circle, stirring up whatever might be bound up or stagnant from the day thus far. Let's take about 2 more of these. And then the next time you swing your heart forward, reverse it and just start to go in the opposite direction. Notice if that pattern, that other direction feels any different. And the head is just along for the ride. The action is happening in the middle of the back and down. Let's take 1 more breath here. All right, so we're going to lie on our back, and you might have a prop near you for later, and that prop would go just off your mat to the left. So really for the sake of what we're doing, you might use a smaller prop, firmer prop like a block or a firmer pillow. You may not even need the prop, but just have that in mind and just in case. So we're gonna lie on our back and just pause for a moment. So we're not really gonna do anything much yet other than notice how we feel with our back against the ground. Notice if the low back or tailbone, sacrum, notice if that feels a little tender against the floor. Maybe it feels very relaxed. And see if you can settle the back of your body heavier against the earth. So there might be things clenching up and you can give them permission to unclench in your body, allowing more of you to get heavier into the floor. Then we'll work into the hip joint next. And then if you want to put something behind your head, like a pillow or blanket, you can certainly do that while you're here. We're going to start with the right leg. So your knees are bent, feet are flat on the floor. And before we move on, if what we're doing right here feels really good to your spine, this is a very good counter for if you're sitting forward all day or kind of hunched over the computer. Just this neutral spine we're in takes us out of that kind of forward posture. So you can stay here as long as you want. Otherwise, if you want to move along with me, we'll take our right leg up to tabletop. So the shin is parallel to the floor, and then you'll open your left knee out to the left a little bit, making some room. And then we'll start to stir that right thigh bone around in the socket, a rather big, maybe medium to large circle. So only going as big of a range as feels comfortable for your low back and hip. The hips will sort of rock across the mat. And then that same circle, you'll reverse it. We'll go for about 8 circles, this opposite direction. And so we're using a lot of circular movement today. It's more summery these days. And so we can look towards the water element to balance some of that fire that's out in the world, the heat. And so these circular movements are kind of fluid like water. They encourage synovial fluid in our joints when we move our joints repetitively, right? So kind of feeling that water element. And then we'll cross our right ankle on top of the left thigh, and then you'll pick up your left foot. You can interlace the fingers behind that left thigh and just pause for a moment. We're going to take a little bit of time in our number 4 stretch or reclined pigeon. And then check in with your upper body if it feels like there's lots of tension in the neck and shoulders. You might stick a prop under your head to support your neck and shoulders. We'll be here for about 10 more breaths before we turn it into another pose. So in these last moments we're here, I invite you to soften whatever might feel clenched. All right, we'll let that be our last breath, and I'm gonna let someone else join us, so that's why I'm getting up for a moment.
Sorry, I was trying to for a while, but it just now let me in.
I think I saw you for a flash and then it went away like right around 4:30. Yes, so.
Sorry about that. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's okay. All right, so we have our right leg crossed over our left thigh, number 4. And what we're gonna do is morph this into a new stretch, an IT band stretch, but it's also a spinal twist. So we'll let our legs just be as they are in number 4, and then you'll rotate your legs over to the left. And so the sole of your right foot lands on the ground. And I'm gonna wiggle my body back so you can see this a little better. And so if your foot doesn't quite make the floor, this is where you might employ a prop. So you can take that prop under your foot, and that can steady you a little bit more here because we'll be here for a while. Bottom leg is completely relaxed. And then you can use your arm, your hand to hold that ankle in place. That's what I like to do here. And open the right arm out to the right, look to the right. And we'll hang out here for just a little bit, giving our outer hips some attention. And when the mind starts to wander, I invite you to breathe into the center of the chest, opening that heart space with each breath. Take one more breath here. And then as you exhale, return to your back, and you can take your legs long or bend your knees, recenter the hips, and just take a pause wherever you're at. Kind of checking in with the right and left halves of your body, the right and left hips in particularly. Noticing the front of the hip, the back, and the side of the hip. And we'll take it into the other side. So you'll bend your knees, set your feet on the ground. And we'll pick up the left leg to tabletop. And I like to put my hands behind my head just for a little neck support. And you can open your right knee out to the right and start to stir that left thigh bone around like you're stirring a big pot of soup. Medium to large, whatever size circle is comfortable for you. Take 2 more circles this way before we change directions, and then reversing. And then we'll take it into that number 4 stretch, crossing the left ankle on top of the right thigh, picking up the legs, interlacing the fingers behind the right thigh, pulling in and taking just a moment to be here and marinating in the stretch. See if you can grow the back of the neck long to the back of the mat. You might have to pick up your head, drop your chin down into the throat and lower the head down. We'll transition this into kind of that IT band variation of a stretch. So you'll release your hands, but keep the legs in that number 4. I want to move my body just a little bit so I'm not so close to the wall, but the legs will lift up and then you'll rotate them over to the right. Sole of the left foot touches the floor or a prop if you want to bring a prop under the sole of that foot. You can reach down and grab that ankle as well. We'll just be here for a little bit of time. We'll take one more breath here. And then as you exhale, we'll lift back up and then you can reset the feet, pause and observe what is shifting on the inside. You can grow your legs long or keep your knees bent. We'll just pause here. And then finally, we'll hug our knees one more time into the chest, massaging along the low back for a moment. And then rolling to the side, we'll make our way up and we'll come and have a seat. So we did that reclining pigeon, that number 4 stretch is the other name for it, but now we're going to take it into double pigeon. It was kind of to prime us for this. So I do recommend sitting on a prop if you need to, especially if you get into this next one and it feels kind of intense. So I'll show you where we're going with this. So for double pigeon, you'll either stack shin over shin. So we're going to start with the left leg on top today. It doesn't really matter which one, but just make sure you don't do the same one twice. shin over shin, or you could take foot over knee and knee over foot. Now we want to stack our legs like you're stacking some fire logs. So one shin is directly over the other. So instead of having your bottom foot kind of tucked back, you want to bring it just below the top knee. And then you'll start to stretch up tall through your spine. So if you get into this pose and you can't sit up really tall, that is an indicator you definitely want to use a prop. Any prop will do. A taller prop makes it easier, right? So the taller the prop you sit on, the easier this becomes. And then you have a little more staying power. You can also use another prop, or in a different way you can use the prop is you could put a prop between the knee and the foot if there is a bit of space there. So you can try what you need and ask yourself, would I want to be here for a few minutes? Does this feel doable, or do I need to prop myself more or less? So with that being said, we'll take our time settling in. And then the first step is to sit up tall and breathe. And then once that feels established, then, and I'm not saying do this right now, but know where we're going, you'll start to lean forward and kind of round your spine over your legs at some point if you need more sensation, right? So we're going to be here for a few minutes. So find a gentler feeling first, and then we'll ease our way deeper gradually. Let your breathing become a tool when you start to feel a bit of tension in the body. This is a very intense pose. If you're tight in the hips, it's intense. And so you might notice the times your shoulders want to clench up or your jaw wants to clench up, and just notice that and then breathe into it and let some of that tension soften. We're about halfway there. So if you want to go deeper, if you want to come out of it a bit, you can. You can try and lean into it and just see what that feels like for the second half. We'll be here for 10 more breaths. Choose those last moments how you like here. We'll take a deep breath in. And then as you exhale, come out of this slowly, and you can lean back on your hands, uncross your legs, and just take that pause. settling back into your body, noticing stillness. And then we'll do the other side. So this time we'll cross the right leg over the left. And I often find that sometimes it's a little easier the second time around because we did simultaneously open both hips on the first side, right? So it would make sense they might be easier to get into this on the second side. So first of all, notice if both sitting bones are on the ground. If you're unable to make them both even on the ground, grab a prop, sit on the prop. And see if you can stack shin over shin or ankle over ankle. And then we'll be here for a few minutes. Letting your breath be the soothing balm for your body. Sometimes thoughts and feelings can come up. Just let that be part of the practice. Just breathe through whatever comes up if you can. We're about halfway there. So however you want to take this second half of the pose, maybe you lean forward, maybe you come out. It's up to you. We'll take our last 3 breaths here. Inhaling and exhaling. 2 more like this. Last inhale. And as you exhale, slowly come up and remove your crossed legs. Ah! Oh my goodness. Just notice what that did in the body. If you want to windshield wiper your knees, you could bend your knees and just create some internal rotation in the thigh bone because it was a lot of turning the leg bone out. So we can balance it by windshield wipering the legs. So we're going to get into our shoulders a little bit while we're seated. And so find that comfortable seat that works for you. And we'll give ourselves a hug. So you'll open the arms wide and you'll take your left arm under, right arm over, give yourself that hug. And this might be where you want to stay. This might already feel really good. We're opening the back of the heart or in between the shoulder blades here in this eagle variation. You want to go further, you can crawl your hands back, or you could take that full eagle. You would hook on elbows and forearms would touch or palms would touch here. And then start to find a tall lifted spine and then let the arms and shoulders press down. You might move your head around, let the neck get nice and long. And then this is the pose, but there's ways we can deepen further. So this is kind of an active stretch. We're pressing the arms into one another. And then from there, pull the arms and shoulders down your back. So you're feeling this kind of work in the arms, energy down. And as you're pulling the arms down, can you lift the back of your skull up? So the next movement, energetic movement here, is to reach your arms across the room, reach them forward out in front of you, almost like there's a magnet across the room and your arms are made of metal. So you'll feel your shoulder blades kind of round and separate even more apart. And the last cue here is to think of 100 inflatable balloons, and they're hooked, attached to a hook that hooks right under your elbows. Feel those balloons kind of pull your elbows gently forward and up. So you're getting more under that shoulder blade. And then breathe wherever you're noticing that stretch, breathe there. We'll take one more breath together. And as you exhale, let it all go. And just notice what that did in your body. Other side, this time right arm under. Give yourself a hug. And then you can either stay here or crawl your arms. So you can stay here the whole time and just press the arms together like this, or you can coil the arms once or twice. Pull the arms down. And lift the back of your skull tall. Feel your spine lifting tall, like an antenna to the sky. Then let your arms stretch themselves across the way so you feel your shoulder blades separating. And then lastly, think of that, a bunch of helium balloons all attached to one big hook. That hook is right under your elbows. Let those balloons pull your elbows forward and slightly up, getting the underside of your shoulder blades. We'll stay here. Take a deep breath in, and then as you exhale, release and notice what that did in your body. So that addressed the back of the shoulders. Now we're going to address the front of the shoulder and the pec. In a moment, you're going to lie down on the ground, and the camera won't really capture my whole body, but what you will do on your belly in a moment is you'll have your right arm out to the right on the ground, palm on the ground, and that's how we're going to start. Okay, so we'll go ahead and lie all the way down on our belly. And then you'll take your other hand, your left hand, to the floor, and then you'll start to roll onto that right shoulder. You'll stack your legs, and we'll stay here. You might make sure your head is on the floor. If it doesn't quite make the floor, put a prop under your head. You can also crawl your arm further back behind you to open the front of the shoulder. We'll take one more breath here. And then as you exhale, return to your belly and we'll do the other side. So you'll take your left arm out to the left, straight at the height of your shoulder. You'll press into the floor with your right hand and roll. So you're rolling into that left shoulder, legs are stacked, head is heavy on the floor. We'll take 2 more breaths here. And then we'll return to the belly and then we'll slowly make our way up to hands and knees. When you're ready, no rush. Oh. And then we'll come into child's pose. So we'll do a wide knees child's pose. This can help get into the hips as well. So you'll take your knees wide, big toes touch, sit your hips back to your heels, and just start to fold in, releasing your forehead down. Big belly breathing, big belly breaths is encouraged here if you need something to focus on. We'll be here for a little bit longer. If you want to turn this into more of a tricep stretch, you'll stay in child's pose, but you'll bend your elbows and bring your palms to touch, and then start to crawl your elbows forward and then melt down, thumbs to the upper back. We'll slowly come out of this and we're going to lay out on our belly and you'll be on your elbows. So we'll be in our Sphinx pose. So slowly making your way to your belly. Tucking your toes under, crawling the legs a little further back, getting some length in the front of the hips, taking the feet wide, and then push down into your forearms. Your elbows are just in front of your shoulder line, but of course they could be more in front if it feels a little sharp in the low back here. We do want to pick up our head off our shoulders, so we want to feel a little bit of arm engagement, but everything else is free to relax. Especially your belly, your glutes, your feet, your legs. We'll be here for another minute. You can move your head around in a little half circle, drawing your chin to your chest and then over to one shoulder if you need that to release your neck. We'll take one more breath here. And you'll bring your head to center. And as you exhale, widen your elbows apart. Stack your hands under your cheek or forehead. Pause on your belly. Let yourself soften. Feel that low back opening back up that we just compressed. We're going to take another pose here while we're on our belly. And I should mention, if you're on a hard surface, maybe grab an extra blanket to pad under your inner knee or ankle. We're going to open the right leg out to the right at 90 degrees. So the knee is roughly at the height of the hip. And the the ankle bone is also in the same plane as the knee. And just pause right here and allow your belly to soften, allow those inner thighs to start to relax away from one another. So there's this kind of water element of this feeling of as if your body is a puddle of water and you're spreading out across the floor. And if you'd like to integrate more of that back bend that we did earlier, that Sphinx pose, you can come back up to your elbows at any point. But sometimes I like to stay all the way down. It's a personal preference here. Keep that Sphinx or not. We'll take one more breath here. And then you can stretch that right leg long behind you, pause. And then we'll do the other side. We'll let our right knee or left knee open out to the left. You want to check out and make sure it's roughly at 90 degrees and the knee is at the height of your hip and the ankle joint is at the same plane as your knee. You can stay down or come up to your elbows. Probably do the same thing you did on the first side to be consistent. Just let it all expand across the floor. And we'll let this be our last breath. We'll slide the left leg back and just kind of pause. And then from here, you can roll onto your back wherever you're at. We'll take just the briefest of pose here. We'll take waterfall pose just for a moment. So sometimes we do this pose, we stick a prop under our hips, and you're welcome to do that, but kind of we're going brief just for the sake of Shavasana is on the way. So I'm gonna kind of lower my feet so you can see this. You can point and flex your feet, circle the ankles, whatever feels really good here. Your legs are floated up in the air in sort of this effortless fashion. You can bend the knees slightly to let this be a little bit more relaxing. If it feels a little tense or tight. And then we'll fold our knees into the chest and just take a little rock of our low back against the earth, pressing the sacrum and back of the hips heavy. Then we'll take our final moments, setting up for Shavasana. If you would like to do legs up the wall, you can do that in place of Shavasana, and you know how to do that, I believe. I want to offer butterfly Shavasana. So the soles of the feet together, knees open wide. That might feel really comfortable. If that does anything to your low back, it's better to have the knees bent and the soles of the feet up to the ceiling. We'll stay here for a few minutes, resting, Shavasana. So we'll gather ourselves, gradually re-emerging, that kind of sleepy, restful state will transition at your own time back up to a comfortable seat. And once you find your seat, you can stack your hands one on top of the other at the center of your heart, that heart space that we opened up by way of opening up the shoulders, kind of clearing that channel, if you will. And really, this practice is about loving ourselves, right? Honoring our bodies, listening to our needs. It is practicing that, what I like to call self-keeping, self-love. So bowing your mind, bowing some gratitude for yourself for showing up and practicing today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry for the middle of the practice interruption.
Oh, no worries.